Captain Ryland sat alone in the damaged human outpost, listening to the wind howl across the barren alien desert. The last supply ship had crashed 2 days ago, and he had eaten the final emergency ration that morning, his stomach twisted in hunger. But his mind stayed sharp. He was trained for survival. But he knew he needed real food soon, or he would collapse. The nearest trading station belonged to the Zarok, an alien species known for their strict rules and their deep fear of humans. Ryland knew the stories. The Zarok believed humans were violent predators who ate anything alive. They believed humans enjoyed hunting living creatures for sport. They believed humans were chaos in flesh. But Ryland had no choice if he did not get food today. He might not see tomorrow. He walked toward the glowing entrance of the Zarok station. Every alien in sight froze when they saw him. Small Zarok children hid behind their parents. Traders stepped back, eyes wide. Guards reached for their weapons. Ryland lifted his hands slowly, trying to show he meant no harm. "I only need food," he said softly. His voice echoed through the stone hall. The aliens whispered among themselves. Their blue eyes flickered with confusion and fear. They had heard humans could speak, but hearing the calm tone shocked them. A guard approached carefully. "Wearing heavy armor and holding a plasma spear? State your request." "Human," the guard said, his voice shaking. Ryland kept his voice steady. "I want meat." The hall became silent as death. A spoon dropped. A child gasped. Every alien stared at Ryland as if he had announced a massacre. The guard froze, his hand trembling on the spear. He turned slowly toward the others. He asked for meat. He repeated in disbelief. The station leader, Elder Vorok, stepped forward. His scales shimmered purple in the glow of the lamps. He studied Ryland like a scientist studying a dangerous creature. "You want meat?" Vorok said. "Fresh, yes?" Ryland replied simply, hoping they had anything edible on this world. Dried meat, cooked meat, even alien meat he did not care. He was starving, but the Zarok misunderstood. In their culture, fresh meat meant alive, and they believed humans preferred their meals terrified. Shaking and breathing, they believed the more fear inside the prey. The better the flavor for humans, that myth was thousands of years old. And no Zarok had ever questioned it. Vorok raised his hand. "Bring the offering," he commanded. 2 guards disappeared into a back room moments later. They returned pushing a small figure forward. Ryland blinked, confused. It was not an animal. It was a young alien girl. Her wrists were bound. Her eyes full of terror, she stumbled, fell, and was dragged back to her feet. Ryland's heart stopped. His blood turned cold. He stared at the girl in horror. "What are you doing?" he shouted, stepping back. "I asked for food." Not this, but the aliens completely misunderstood his reaction. They thought the human was excited. They thought his raised voice meant hunger. They thought he was preparing to choose the method of consuming her. The entire station watched him with wide, expectant eyes, their cameras turned toward him. Every movement was recorded, every breath judged. They wanted to see how a human consumed prey. They wanted to confirm their ancient stories. The girl, shaking violently, looked up at Ryland. Her small voice whispered something he could not understand, something full of fear and hopelessness. She believed she would die. She believed she was a meal. She believed the human would kill her in seconds. Ryland slowly knelt. He put both hands on the ground to show he meant no harm. The girl stared, confused. This was not how the stories described humans. She had been told humans roared with hunger. She had been told humans ripped prey apart. But this one knelt before her. Silent, calm, gentle. Ryland cut the rope around her wrists, using his survival knife. The aliens gasped. They thought he was simply preparing the meat before eating it. Whispers filled the hall, fear mixed with curiosity. The council guards stepped closer, ready to act if the human became violent. Ryland removed his jacket and wrapped it around the shaking girl. "You are safe," he told her quietly, even though she could not understand. "I won't hurt you," to the Zarok. This gesture made no sense. Why would a predator warm its prey? Why protect something you plan to kill? Their beliefs began cracking. The cameras zoomed closer, capturing every detail. The council watched from their floating screens. The entire station held its breath. If the human harmed her, it would confirm everything their legends said. If he protected her, it would destroy thousands of years of fear. Rylan looked up slowly, meeting the eyes of Elder Vorak. "I do not eat people," he said firmly. "I only want food." But the aliens did not believe him yet. They took one step back, one step forward. Hands tightening on weapons, they waited, they watched, they judged. And Rylan realized one terrifying truth. Every alien in the room believed his next move would define all of humanity. If he made one wrong action, one wrong gesture, one wrong look, a war could start. He swallowed. He breathed slowly. He held the girl close to calm her, and the entire alien station stood frozen, waiting to see what the human would do next. The silence inside the Zarek station felt like a heavy fog. Every alien eye stayed fixed on Captain Rylan. The girl trembled in his arms, trying to pull away. But she no longer believed he would kill her. She only feared what her own people might do if they misunderstood his every movement. Elder Vorak raised one hand. A guard stepped forward. "He is not consuming the offering," the guard whispered. Confused and tense, he freed it. Vorak's eyes narrowed. "Humans prepare their prey before feeding," he replied slowly. "This is part of the ritual." The aliens murmured in agreement, believing they were witnessing a sacred human tradition. Rylan lifted both hands slightly to show calm. "Please listen," he said. "I do not want her. I only want food." The problem was simple. The Zark did not understand his words. Their language translators were built on ancient records cords, filled with myths and fear. To them, his tone sounded like hunger, not peace. His gentle voice sounded like a predator playing with its prey. His soft movements looked like hunting behavior slowed by patience. The guards began to circle the room. Moving slowly, their weapons hummed, ready to fire. Their eyes glittered with both fear and curiosity. This was the moment their ancestors had warned them about. The moment when humanity might finally strike. The girl clung to Rylan's jacket with both hands. She whispered her name, Lyra. Her voice shook. But she was trying to show trust. She could not understand him. But she felt something different, a warmth she had never seen in a human. A softness, something no ancient story had described. When Rylan heard her name, he gently touched his chest. "Rylan," he said, speaking slowly so she could learn the sound. Lyra blinked, surprised. No predator introduced itself to prey. She repeated softly, "Ry." Lan, the aliens watching the screens gasped again. They interpreted this as a claiming ritual, thinking Rylan was marking her with a name for easier consumption. The council chamber erupted in debate. Some believed this human was a threat. Others thought he was performing an ancient tradition unknown to them. Vorak turned sharply toward the guards. "He is choosing the prey," he declared. "Prepare the chamber." 2 guards bowed and ran to a nearby control panel. Rylan watched them with concern. "What are they doing?" He whispered. His instincts screamed danger. He gently pulled Lyra behind him, shielding her completely. Suddenly, the massive metal doors sealed shut with a heavy thud. Rylan's heart raced. The clicking of locking mechanisms echoed through the hall. He could feel the tension rising like a storm. A deep rumble came from the ceiling as hidden vents opened, releasing cold air and dim lights. Lyra's eyes filled with terror. "Hunt chamber," she whispered in her language, her voice cracking. "They think. You hunt me here." Rylan felt his stomach twist again. Not from hunger this time, but from dread. They actually believed he wanted a hunt. They believed he wanted her alive inside this room. They believed violence was an art for humans, a ritual, a celebration. He shook his head fiercely. "No, Lyra," he said. "I'm not going to hurt you, Rylands." The voice trembled with frustration. He needed a way to show the aliens the truth. He needed to break the ancient fear that painted humans as monsters. Outside the chamber, dozens of Zarek stood in front of screens, waiting to see how he would begin the hunt. Some whispered predictions. He will chase her. He will show his teeth. He will strike quickly. Humans savor fear. their voices mixed with fear. Excitement and horror inside, Ryland sat on the ground and held up his hands. Forcing himself to stay calm, Lyra watched with confusion. "Sit." "No hunt," she said slowly. Trying to understand his behavior, she sat beside him. Trembling, but trusting him more than before, Ryland removed the survival knife from his belt and placed it far away. Pushing it across the floor, Lyra looked at the knife. Then at him, then back at the knife. Her eyes widened in shock. No hunter would throw away their only weapon. This was not the act of a predator. This was something else, something her people had never seen. At that moment, everything changed for Lyra. She moved closer, sitting just inches from him. Her hand shook as she pointed to herself. "No meat," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Pointing to herself again, "Lyra. Lyra, no meat." Ryland nodded firmly, gently placing a hand over his heart. "Never," he said. "You are not food. You are a person. Asterisk." Lyra did not understand the word person, but she understood the tone. She understood the emotion. She understood the kindness. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she leaned closer to Ryland's shoulder. Outside, the aliens watching the screens stared in disbelief. "He is not hunting," one whispered. "He is speaking to the prey," another said. "He gave up his weapon. He is not behaving like a predator for the first time." Doubt began spreading across the Zarak station. The myths were breaking. Slowly, painfully, but they were breaking. But that new doubt also created danger. A faction of radical Zarak warriors believed Ryland was using manipulation to weaken Lyra before attack. They believed humans were clever, deceptive monsters. They believed kindness was just another hunting tactic. Those radicals were already preparing weapons, already marching toward the chamber, already ready to save Lyra by killing Ryland, and Ryland had no idea death was coming. He only knew one thing: he must protect Lyra at any cost. The chamber lights flickered as Captain Ryland and Lyra sat together on the cold metallic floor. Outside the sealed doors, the alien station buzzed with tension. The Zarak council members stared at the screens, unsure if they were witnessing kindness or deception. The young ones whispered in fear. The elders argued quietly among themselves. Their ancient beliefs were shaken, but none of them knew which truth to trust inside the chamber. Lyra looked at Ryland with red, frightened eyes, but there was a small softness in them too, a tiny seed of trust growing slowly. She had never imagined a human sitting peacefully without hunting. She had never imagined a human pushing away a weapon. She had certainly never imagined a human wrapping prey in a jacket to keep them warm. For Ryland, the situation felt like a nightmare. If he moved too suddenly, the aliens might misunderstand. If he touched Lyra without warning, the council might think he was preparing to harm her. Everything he did needed to be slow, clear and gentle. His every breath felt watched, judged, recorded. He glanced at the ceiling, noticing the faint glimmer of hidden cameras. "They're watching us," he whispered. Lyra followed his gaze and nodded. "Always watch," she said in her trembling voice. "They see everything," Ryland sighed. "I need them to understand," he murmured. Lyra tilted her head, not understanding the words, but feeling the emotion behind them. She pointed to the knife lying across the chamber. "You not use," she said softly. "You know? Eat Lyra," Ryland nodded. "I will never hurt you," he whispered. Slowly, Lyra touched her own forehead, then pointed to his heart. "You." "Strange," she said, searching for words. "Human. Not like story." Her words cut through him, because they revealed the heart of the problem. For thousands of years, the Zarak believed humans were monsters. Entire legends built on fear. Maybe based on one misunderstanding long ago, maybe based on war, maybe based on lies passed down through generations. But now, for the first time, a Zarak girl sat beside a human and saw something different outside the chamber. The Zarak council members watched Ryland wrap Lyra in his jacket again when the cold wind blew through the vents. They were astonished. One council member whispered, "Why warm prey?" Another replied, "This is not the way of predators." But their confusion was not shared by everyone. Far down the station corridors, a group of radical warriors marched with weapons raised. Their leader, Korvac, believed humans were the greatest threat in the galaxy. He believed that showing weakness to a human invited destruction. He believed that the human in the chamber was manipulating Lyra with psychological tricks. "This is how predators work," Korvac growled. "They calm the prey before striking." His soldiers nodded, their minds clouded by old stories and fear. Back inside the chamber, Rylan tried to communicate more. He gently drew a small circle on the floor with his finger. Then he drew 2 dots inside the circle, one for him, one for Lyra. Lyra watched the drawing with curiosity. He then put his hand between the 2 dots, showing a wall. Then he erased the wall with his hand. "Showing unity, peace," Lyra gasped softly, understanding the meaning even without words. She pointed to him, then to herself, then shook her head at the idea of a barrier. "No wall," she whispered. "You. No hurt." Tears formed in her eyes again, and she leaned forward, hugging him tightly. Rylan froze, surprised, but he slowly wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Comforting her, the camera zoomed in, capturing the moment. For the first time in their recorded history, a human and a Zarek were embracing without violence. The council chamber fell into complete silence. Even Elder Varrock, who believed humans were dangerous, could not deny what he saw. "This is no hunt," one council member whispered. "This is protection," another said, tears forming in their eyes. But then an alarm blared suddenly. A warning light flashed across the chambers. The screens flickered to red. Elder Vorak spun around, his eyes widened with horror. "Korvac's faction is approaching the chamber," a guard shouted. "They think the human is deceiving the girl. They intend to kill him." The council members panicked. Some wanted to stop the radicals. Others were afraid to confront them. Some still believed Korvac might be right. The ancient fear of humans was strong in their hearts. Inside the chamber, Rylan heard the distant alarms. He stood up quickly, placing Lyra behind him. Her breathing grew fast. "They come," she whispered, clutching his jacket. Rylan put his hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her. "It's okay," he said calmly, though his heart pounded hard. "I'll protect you." But deep down, he knew the truth. He had no weapon, he had no armor, he had no shield. All he had was his body, his courage, and the hope that the council would intervene outside. Korvac and his soldiers reached the final door. "We break in," Korvac ordered. "We end the deception." The metal doors began to glow as cutting lasers sliced through the locks. Sparks fell like rain. Inside, Lyra grabbed Rylan's hand tightly, her eyes wide with terror. "Please," she whispered. "Do not leave, Lyra." Rylan squeezed her hand gently. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. His voice was steady, his eyes focused, his heart ready. Because he knew in that moment he was no longer only fighting for food. He was fighting for peace, for truth, for Lyra, and the next few seconds would decide the fate of 2 species. The heavy chamber doors shook as Korvac's warriors cut through the final metal layer. Sparks rained across the hallway, their bright orange glow reflecting on angry alien faces. The Zarek radicals were convinced they were saving their people from a clever human predator. They believed Rylan's gentle actions were nothing but a trap. And in their fear, they were ready to kill him without hesitation. Inside the chamber, Rylan pulled Lyra behind a support pillar. Her breathing was fast and shaky. "They will hurt you," she whispered, tears forming in her large eyes. "They think." "You bad." Rylan knelt beside her, grabbing her hands gently. "Listen, Lyra," he said in a soft voice. "No matter what happens, I will keep you safe." His voice carried a calm strength that eased her fear. Even as the sounds of cutting lasers grew louder, the chamber lights flickered, shadows dancing across the metal walls. Outside, Elder Vorak rushed toward the hall. His followers close behind. "Stop this," Vorak shouted. "Korvac, stand down." But the radicals blocked him. Raising their weapons, "You have lost your mind," Korvac growled. "That creature is manipulating the girl." Vorak slammed his fist against the wall. "Open your eyes," he said. "The human has shown no violence." Korvac spat in anger. "That is how predators deceive inside. Lyra flinched at every loud thud from the door. She could feel her own people turning against the only person who protected her. She pressed closer to Rylan. "You stay," she begged. "Don't fight. They kill." Rylan touched her face gently. "I don't want to fight anyone," he whispered. "But I won't let them harm you." She nodded weakly, tears falling with a final blast. The chamber doors burst open. Smoke filled the entryway. And Korvac soldiers stormed inside with glowing spears raised high. Their armor clattered, their feet pounding like thunder. They scanned the room for the human predator they believed was hiding. "There," one soldier shouted, pointing toward. Rylan and Lyra crouched behind the pillar. "Stay behind me, Rylan," whispered to Lyra, rising slowly with his hands raised. Korvac stepped forward, his eyes filled with rage. "Release the girl," he snarled. Now Rylan shook his head calmly. "She's not a prisoner," he said firmly. "And I'm not your enemy." The aliens could not understand every word. But they understood enough. They believed he was refusing to give up his prey. Korvac slammed his spear on the ground. "Attack," he commanded, and his warriors charged. Lyra screamed and grabbed Rylan's arm. Rylan instinctively stepped in front of her. Spreading his arms to shield her completely, he knew he would not survive a direct hit from their weapons. But he refused to move aside in that moment. The alien saw something that froze them mid-charge. Humans do not protect prey. Humans do not cover prey with their bodies. Humans do not risk death for prey. Yet Rylan stood like an unbreakable wall, his arms wide, his eyes steady. His body ready to take the full impact. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. For the first time, Korvac hesitated. "Why defend her?" he demanded, confused and shaking. "Why die for her?" Rylan took a step forward. "Because she is not prey," he said. "She is a person." "Just like me," Lyra clung to him, repeating broken words. "Rylan good?" "No hurt." Her voice cracked, but her meaning was clear. The radicals paused, their belief system trembling. Some lowered their spears slightly. But Korvac roared in anger. "Lies," he shouted. "Human manipulation." He lunged forward with his spear raised, aiming straight at Rylan's chest. "No, no, 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 no." Lyra screamed. Throwing herself in front of Rylan, her small body became a shield. She stood between him and her own people. Korvac froze, the spear inches from her heart. Silence exploded through the chamber. The soldiers watched, stunned. Even the council members outside held their breath. Lyra shook violently as she shouted at Korvac, words flowing out in her native tongue. "You lie," she cried. "He saved me. He protected me. He gave his warmth. He gave his food. Humans, not monsters." Her voice echoed across the chamber, resonating with truth. The council screens broadcast her words live. Every Zarek watching felt their ancient fear begin to crack. Some gasped, some trembled, some cried quietly. Rylan gently pulled Lyra behind him again, but she grabbed his hand, refusing to let go. Korvac lowered his spear slowly, but his pride kept him trembling with rage. "This cannot be," he whispered. "Humans, kind." His voice broke, his beliefs shattered. Before anyone could speak again, Elder Varrock entered the chamber with his guards. "Enough," Varrock commanded, his voice booming. The warrior stepped aside, unsure and shaken. Vorak walked up to Rylan slowly, carefully, examined the human not with fear this time but with curiosity. "You protected her," Vorak said quietly. Rylan nodded. Always Vorak looked at Lyra, who was still holding Rylan's hand tightly. Then he turned to the council's screens, where thousands of Zarek were watching. "This human," Vorak declared, "is not the monster our legends spoke of." Gasps echoed through the station. History was changing. Beliefs were falling apart. Truth was rising, but something darker still moved in the shadows. For not everyone accepted this new truth. Some warriors whispered among themselves, some plotted, some feared peace more than war. And Rylan could feel it. New danger was coming. A bigger one. One that would challenge both species. But for now, he only tightened his grip on Lyra's hand. Knowing the fight was far from over, the chamber was silent after Elder Vorak's declaration. The Zarek Council stared at the screens in disbelief. Ryland stood beside Lyra, still breathing hard, still shaken from the attack. Lyra held his hand tightly, her fingers trembling but refusing to let go. For the first time in her life, she felt protected by someone her people called a monster. And for the first time in Ryland's life, he felt responsible for an entire alien species' future. But peace never comes so easily. When fear is older than the stones beneath their feet, Korvac's warriors stepped back, confused and terrified. Their ancient beliefs were collapsing in front of their eyes. Some dropped their weapons. Some stared at Ryland in shock. Others looked to Korvac for guidance. But Korvac's heart was full of pride and anger. His voice shook with disbelief. "Our legends cannot be wrong," he whispered. "Humans are predators." Elder Vorak moved closer to him, "And yet he protected our child," Vorak said. "He risked his life." Korvac shook his head violently. "It is manipulation." He insisted, "Humans are clever hunters." He pointed at Ryland with a shaking claw. "He is deceiving us." Ryland stepped forward, placing himself slightly in front of Lyra. "I haven't lied," he said gently. "I only want peace." Korvac's chest heaved with anger. His hands trembled around the spear. His pride refused to accept the truth that stood before him. He roared in frustration and charged forward, ready to strike again, but this time Elder Vorak raised his staff, and the floor lit up with a bright pulse of blue light. A shockwave threw Korvac backward, sending him crashing into the metal wall. Gasps filled the chamber. "Enough," Vorak thundered. "He will not be harmed." Guards surrounded Korvac. Taking his spear and restraining him, Korvac's eyes burned with hatred and shame. "You choose them over your own kind," he spit. Vorak shook his head slowly. "I choose truth," he said, "and the truth stands before us." He pointed at Ryland and Lyra. Still holding each other's hands, the council's screen zoomed in on them again. Broadcasting the moment to every Zarek on the station, every viewer saw Ryland's steady eyes, his calm breath, his protective stance. No hunger, no cruelty, no malice. Only humanity, only compassion, only the truth their legends had hidden. Lyra stepped forward, still trembling, but her voice was steady, wry. "Land good," she said loudly. "He no eat, he no hunt, he save." Her people listened, hearts shaking. Elder Vorak bowed his head, a sign of deep respect in his culture. "Human Ryland," he said. "I offer apology for our fear." Ryland felt his chest tighten with emotion. "I understand," he replied. "Fear changes people." Vorak nodded. "But truth can change fear." Then he turned to the entire station, his voice echoing across every corridor. "From this moment forward, humans are not to be feared. We will rewrite our histories, we will remove the lies, we will begin peace." The crowd watching from across the station erupted in shock and disbelief. Some cried, some cheered, some collapsed to their knees. The greatest barrier between humans and Zark was breaking at last. Centuries of fear cracking apart like old stone. But the moment was not finished. Not yet. Lyra tugged Ryland's sleeve gently. "Lan," she whispered. "Go." "With you?" Ryland blinked. "You want to come with me?" Lyra nodded. "Your world's safe," she said. "Your people. Not fear." Her voice softened. "Lyra wants see." Ryland's heart ached at her innocence. He knelt down to her level, holding her hands. "If you come with me," he said slowly, "you will be protected." Lyra smiled, small, fragile, but full of hope. "I trust," she whispered, touching his chest gently. The council whispered among themselves, confused but curious. Elder Vorak raised his hand. "If she chooses to go," he said, "we will not stop her," Korvac shouted from the corner. "You cannot let a child go with a predator." Vorak silenced him with a single glare. "You protected her," Vorak said. "You attacked her." Korvac turned away, defeated. His followers lowered their heads. Shame replacing anger, Vorak stepped closer to Ryland. "Human Ryland," he said, "your actions have changed two worlds today." Ryland shook his head. "I only did what anyone should do." Vorak smiled faintly. "Not anyone," he said softly, "only a true guardian." The council approved Lyra's safe passage. The people watched with mixed emotions, and the chamber doors finally opened. revealing the bright corridor beyond. As Rylan and Lyra walked toward the shuttle that would carry them to human space, a message arrived on every Zark screen, a message from the outer colonies. A message that carried fear and curiosity, it said. If one human can change the heart of an entire station, what will happen when the galaxy meets the rest of them? Rylan held Lyra's hand tighter, knowing the galaxy was now watching humans with new eyes. Not as monsters, not as predators, but as mysteries, as protectors, as something far more powerful than legends could ever describe. And as the shuttle doors closed behind them, Lyra leaned her head against his arm, whispering softly, "Rye." "Thank you," Rylan smiled gently. "You're safe now," he said, and together they stepped into a future neither species had ever imagined. Asterisk, asterisk.